There are wars that are fought in plain sight, and then there are wars that happen in silence. No explosions, no headlines, no visible confrontation, only movement beneath the surface. During the Cold War, some of the most dangerous encounters never happen in the sky or on land. They happen deep underwater, where visibility disappears, where sound becomes the only way to see, and where one submarine could follow another without ever being detected, because in that environment, the objective wasn't to attack, it was to track, to stay close enough to monitor, but far enough to remain invisible. This is the story of the submarines that shadowed the Soviet Navy, the hidden operations that unfolded beneath the ocean, where every movement mattered and every mistake could trigger something far greater. At the height of the Cold War, the oceans became one of the most critical arenas of competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both sides deployed submarines capable of carrying nuclear weapons, ballistic missile submarines designed to operate in secrecy, to remain hidden, to ensure that even if a first strike occurred, a response would still be possible. This concept, second strike capability, defined strategic stability, because as long as submarines remained undetected, deterrence remained intact. But that created a new challenge, finding them, because knowing where those submarines were meant understanding the real balance of power, and not knowing meant uncertainty. For the United States, that uncertainty was unacceptable, because strategy depended on information, on awareness, on the ability to track potential threats before they could become something more. But tracking a submarine is not like tracking an aircraft. There is no radar image, no visual confirmation, only sound, subtle, faint, sometimes barely detectable, and often buried in the noise of the ocean itself. To solve that problem, the United States developed one of the most advanced underwater surveillance capabilities of the Cold War. Submarines designed not just for attack, but for tracking, fast, quiet, equipped with highly sensitive sonar systems, capable of detecting the smallest acoustic signatures, because every submarine leaves a trace, a pattern of sound created by its engines, its propellers, its movement through water, and with the right technology, that pattern could be followed. But technology alone wasn't enough, because shadowing another submarine required something more: precision, patience, control, because getting too close meant detection. And detection meant the mission was over, or worse, escalation. American submarines would position themselves carefully, listening, analyzing, identifying targets. And once a Soviet submarine was located, the shadowing would begin, a silent pursuit, sometimes lasting hours, sometimes days, sometimes longer. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where the most critical operations happen far from view, consider subscribing, because what these submarines were doing beneath the surface was not just tracking an enemy. They were maintaining the balance of an entire system, one that depended on remaining unseen and staying in control, even in complete darkness. Once contact was established, the real challenge began, not finding the submarine, but staying with it, because in the underwater environment, everything is constantly shifting. Temperature layers bend sound, currents alter movement, background noise rises and falls without warning. What seems clear one moment can disappear the next. Inside the American submarine, the sonar room became the center of everything, dimly lit, silent except for the faint hum of equipment. Operators wearing headphones focus entirely on sound, not looking, but listening, because the ocean doesn't reveal what's in front of you. It reveals what you can detect, and detection required discipline. A Soviet submarine wasn't just a target. It was a moving source of sound, a signature, unique, recognizable, but not always consistent. Changes in speed, adjustments in depth, even small course corrections could alter how that sound traveled, which meant the American crew had to adapt constantly, maintaining position without getting too close, because proximity increased risk. Too close, and the Soviet crew might detect them. Too far, and the signal could fade, lost in the noise. That balance between distance and clarity defined the mission, The submarine adjusted course slightly, matching the movement of its target, careful not to mirror it exactly, because predictable movement could be detected. Instead, the tracking was subtle, controlled, a shadow, not a follower. Above, the ocean appeared empty, calm, but below, two vessels moved in coordination without ever communicating, each aware of the possibility of the other, but not always certain. That uncertainty was critical, because the Soviet crew knew they could be followed. They understood the capabilities of American submarines, and sometimes they tested for it. Sudden changes in speed, unexpected turns, depth variations designed to disrupt tracking, attempts to shake anything that might be behind them. In those moments, tension increased, because losing contact meant losing the mission, and regaining it was never guaranteed. Inside the American submarine, the response was immediate. Adjust speed, reposition, reacquire the signal, all done without creating additional noise, without revealing presence, because every action had consequences. Even the sound of the submarine itself could betray its position, so movement had to be minimal, controlled, calculated, because silence was not just an advantage, it was survival. Time passed differently during these operations. Hours felt longer, because every moment required attention. There was no break in focus, no shift away from the objective, only continuous tracking, continuous listening, continuous adjustment. And over time, the crew developed something beyond technical understanding, familiarity. They began to recognize patterns, behavior, the way the Soviet submarine moved, reacted, operated, almost like learning the habits of something unseen, because in the absence of visibility, sound became identity, and identity made tracking possible. But even with that understanding, the risk never disappeared, because one mistake, one misjudged movement, could reveal everything. And if that happened, the silent nature of the mission could change instantly. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where the most intense moments happen without a single word being spoken, consider subscribing, because what would happen next would push these operations to their limit. Because tracking a submarine was one thing, maintaining control when the situation became unpredictable was something else entirely. The moment of instability rarely came with warning. No alarm, no clear signal, just a subtle change. And then everything shifted. It could begin with a sudden maneuver. The Soviet submarine changing course more aggressively than before, dropping deeper, accelerating, or turning sharply in a direction that didn't follow any predictable pattern. Inside the American submarine, the reaction was immediate, because this wasn't routine behavior. This was deliberate, an attempt to detect, or to escape. The sonar signal began to distort, stretching, fading, breaking into fragments as the acoustic conditions changed. For a brief moment, the contact became uncertain. And in underwater tracking, uncertainty is the most dangerous state, because without a clear signal, you are no longer tracking. You are guessing. The crew adjusted quickly, reducing speed, altering depth, trying to regain the acoustic advantage. Because in this environment, position is everything. A few degrees off, a few meters too high or too low, and the sound could disappear entirely. Then it happened. The signal dropped. Gone. Silence. Not the normal silence of the ocean, but the absence of something that had been there moments before. The contact was lost. Inside the submarine, tension rose instantly, because losing contact meant losing awareness. And losing awareness meant uncertainty. The Soviet submarine could be anywhere, behind them, below them, closing distance, or already gone. Every second without reacquisition increased the risk, because now the American submarine was no longer in control of the situation. It was reacting, trying to recover what had been lost. Sonar operators focused intensely, scanning, listening for any trace, any faint return, because even the smallest signal could restore the track. The captain made a decision, a calculated move, adjust course, reposition into a likely path. Based on the last known trajectory, it was not guaranteed, but it was the best option. The submarine moved carefully, balancing the need to search with the need to remain quiet, because searching too aggressively could reveal their own position, and that would change everything. Minutes passed, longer than they should have, because in those moments, time expands. Then a faint sound, barely detectable, but consistent. The signal, weak, but there. The crew locked onto it, refining the position, strengthening the contact, slowly, carefully rebuilding the track. The submarine had not escaped, but it had come close. And that moment changed the dynamic, because now both sides had tested the limits. The Soviet crew had attempted to break contact. The American crew had managed to recover it, and in doing so, they proved something critical. That tracking was not just about technology. It was about persistence, adaptation, the ability to operate under uncertainty, and regain control when it was lost. The shadowing resumed, more cautious now, more precise, because the margin had been revealed. Thin, fragile, easily broken. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where control could be lost and regained in complete silence, consider subscribing, because what these operations ultimately revealed was that dominance in the Cold War wasn't always visible. It was measured in moments like this, where the outcome depended on who could adapt faster and stay hidden longer. In the end, nothing happened. No torpedoes were launched, no collisions, no battle recorded in history books. And yet, these missions mattered more than most people ever realized, because beneath the surface, far from public view, something critical was being maintained, controlled, not through force, but through awareness, because the ability to track a submarine meant more than simply following it. It meant understanding where it was, what it was doing, and what it could do next. For the United States, that awareness changed everything. It reduced uncertainty. It transformed the unknown into something measurable. And in a conflict where nuclear weapons could be launched from hidden platforms, that knowledge became one of the most powerful forms of defense, because deterrence depends on credibility, and credibility depends on understanding. If a submarine could be found, it could be monitored. If it could be monitored, it could be countered. That realization shaped strategy, not just in how submarines were deployed, but in how they were tracked. Improved sonar systems, more advanced submarines, better coordination between assets, all driven by the need to maintain that advantage. At the same time, these operations revealed something equally important. That superiority was not absolute, because the ocean remained unpredictable. Detection was never guaranteed, and the Soviet Navy adapted as well, improving their own capabilities, refining their tactics, making tracking more difficult, which meant the balance was always shifting, always contested, always uncertain. That uncertainty is what defined the underwater Cold War, a constant contest of detection and evasion, of silence and sound, of presence and invisibility. And within that contest, every successful shadowing mission mattered, because each one reinforced something fundamental, that the United States could operate in the most challenging environments and maintain control, even when that control depended on what could not be seen. That is a legacy of the submarines that shadowed the Soviet Navy, not dramatic battles, but silent victories, moments where awareness prevented escalation, where knowledge replaced uncertainty, and where the balance of power was maintained without a single shot being fired. Because in the Cold War, the most important advantage wasn't always strength. It was knowing exactly where that strength was. For more stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because some of the most decisive moments in history happened in silence, hidden beneath the surface, where control was measured not by action, but by understanding.